All right, lift off and the clock has started.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
Discovery, go at throttle up.
And liftoff, the final liftoff of Atlantis on the shoulders of the space shuttle. America will continue the dream.
This is The Space Shot, episode 375. Where did summer go? I'm John Molnix. I'm sharing the latest episode of the Cosmosphere podcast for today's show. It's been incredibly busy on my end, and I obviously haven't had a chance to record podcasts as much as I've hoped. This episode is coming out way later, so I apologize for those of you that have been tuning in expecting a more regular show frequency. I will be getting back on track here now that fall is coming up, and I'm going to have some more days inside where I can get some writing and podcasting done. I also have some really cool opportunities coming up this fall related to some space history, so I'll be sharing those adventures as they come. Since we spoke last, there's been everything from BFR updates to some rocket launches and Blue Origin being selected as the engine for the United Launch Alliance's Vulcan rocket. As evidenced by Mr. Tim being pitiful here, he's not used to me recording lately. I am going to get back to regularly scheduled shows, and we'll be catching up on all of that news as soon as I get the chance. For now, enjoy the latest episode of the Cosmosphere podcast, and have a great week. Welcome to the Cosmosphere podcast. The MOCR gets a lift on the Super Guppy. I'm your host, John Molnix, and I'm a volunteer here at the Cosmosphere. You can catch me on this podcast and on my other show, The Space Shot. In this episode, we talk with Shannon, Jack, and Carla at the Cosmosphere. This is a cool episode because this year marks the beginning of the 50th anniversary celebrations we're going to be seeing for the Apollo program. So we've got some content related to this, as well as some news at the Cosmosphere. Let's jump right in with Jack to get an update on the MOCR consoles and chat a little bit about the process of restoration. So today I'm actually here in Spaceworks. We are in, what do you guys call this, the high bay facility?
The North Building.
The North Building, okay. So it might be a little bit echoey, so apologies for the audio, but this is a pretty cool place to record. We've got Jack Grayberg in on the podcast to give us an update on what's been happening with the MOCR consoles since we spoke last. Jack, welcome back to the show.
Well, thank you for having us, man. This is great. It's fun to have it be on the show.
I'm glad to be here and glad to have you on the podcast. So tell me a little bit about what's been going on since we spoke last. There's been some progress.
Oh, yeah. There's been a lot of progress, a lot of work. We're done with the cleaning process of the consoles and got that process all done. We're now moving into the exciting phase that everybody sees where stuff lights up and changes. So it's kind of like building a house. The framework and stuff's all done. Now we're into the finished work. So nice. A lot of fun.
Yeah, well, I mean, just from when I saw them back in January to now, it's an incredible transformation. So
yeah, and it goes quick. And so, you start off and see the long road ahead, and you start to see some daylight now at the end of the tunnel. It's really exciting.
So last time we spoke, there was a popsicle stick that was the fun little unexpected find. Has there been anything else? I mean, one thing we were talking about, and I'll be showing this on the video, is this cool little display and how it worked. But what's something else that has stuck out to you over the last month?
For the most part now, there really haven't been a whole lot of surprises. There's just been some neat discoveries like the display units, like the channel display indicators, like some of the message display indicators of how that technology was back then, how simplistic but rigid. I mean, it was built to work, and it was very simple. And so there really haven't been any surprises. Kind of like the popsicle stick. It's just been neat to see the changes of technology from the 1960s, to where we're at now. And people always talk about the greatest generation, they saw from the horse to landing on the moon. And yet sometimes I think we too see some huge differences. It's just in a different way.
For sure.
You go from the P-tube stations, which will be taken back, where they, it was pneumatic air system where you wrote a message and stuck it in and sent it through a tube, to where, now you get on a device in your pocket and you can video chat with somebody across the world, instantly. So there have been, and so it's been neat to think about that as we work on these things, not just with NASA's progression, but with our progression through technology.
Well, just how things that were manufactured back then.
Yes.
Versus, there's a lot of similar processes, but just going from, the bundles of wire here, this is radio, so you can't see it, but just bundles of wire that can be replaced with one little cable mount.
Right, yeah. And, even the power consumption, one of the things we're doing, we're replacing all the incandescents with LEDs, and so in just one little in-display indicator, we may be dropping, 2-3 amps worth of power and actually lighting more. And so, it's just, it's just amazing. And they have, like you say, guys can't see it, but they have these massive power supplies that controlled these things that weigh just a ton, and now we're down to something, smaller than a loaf of bread and has twice as much power. It's just, it's really been, that's been awesome for me as a technology standpoint to see those differences. It's cool.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and the news that we just got cleared about to talk about today is how the consoles are going to be transported back to Houston. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so this is really cool. So a little while back, Johnson Space Center contacted us and said, hey, we have an idea. What do you think about this? What about if we fly the Super Guppy into Wichita and pick up the first round? And all of us are like, what's a Super Guppy? We knew it was a plane, but you don't, and for all those listening, Google it and get a picture of it, because you're going to be like, how does that thing fly? It is the weirdest looking plane. So what they're going to do is in November, they're going to fly the Super Guppy into Wichita, and we're going to take the first round of these 10 consoles. We're going to load them up on the Super Guppy. They're going to fly them then into Houston, unload them, then we'll transport them back to JSC on a truck like we would. But for the first round, we're going to fly them on a Super Guppy. It's really cool.
That does sound pretty awesome. I'm going to try to get out here for that.
So. Oh, yeah, please do. You bet.
Fun. Well, Jack, I'm going to let you get back to work here because we caught you in the middle of a work day. So I appreciate
no problem.
You taking the time to chat with us.
You bet. I appreciate it very much. Welcome anytime.
It was great to see the consoles in person, and even cooler to record that segment at Spaceworks. I'll be linking to some pictures and some video in the show notes, so be sure to check those out. Now, let's catch up with Carla to find out what's up at the Cosmosphere this fall. So today I'm talking with Carla Stanfield. She's on the podcast again to let us know what's up at the Cosmosphere. Carla, it's good to have you back.
Thanks for having me again, John. Glad you keep asking me back.
Definitely. We'll always have you here. Carla, we've got fall coming up here. It's already fall here. And that means there's probably some different stuff going on at the Cosmosphere in October. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I sure can. We've got, some exciting new programming coming out to match up with the Girl Scouts who have released some new STEM badges. We are offering some new programming for our scouting programs. So that happens. Actually, it's already started. So the best way to see what programs we offer and how they align with those badges is through our website, and there's a link specifically for Scouts. So I would encourage folks to look at that. And we also have some new memberships for our Scouts, which is kind of a side note, but our Scout leaders can sign up for only $20 a year and receive some benefits for discounts in our gift shop, discounts on camps. They get priority access to some of our special events and other benefits. Those, again, are all listed on our website under Get Involved memberships.
Perfect. I'll be sure to make sure all of those links are in the show notes. And, one other thing that's coming up, it's a very big event, is this December. Can you talk a little bit about what's going to be going on for the gala at the beginning of December?
Absolutely. So we are getting really excited around here,
Same here.
because our guest list is getting pretty notable. So we are having an event on the 1st, December 1st, called Earth Rising, and it'll be a celebration of the Apollo 8 mission specifically.
Okay.
We will have astronauts and mission control from the mission 8, but we'll also have other Apollo astronauts joining us and additional NASA VIPs. So right now, our astronauts that are included in the event are Jim Lovell, Walt Cunningham, Charlie Duke, Fred Hayes, Harrison Schmitt, and we just received word last week that Jack Lausma is added to that list.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we have, like I said, some pretty big names as far as the astronauts are concerned. And then for mission control, we have Arnold Aldrich, Jerry Bostick, Charles Dietrich, Jerry Griffin, Charles Lewis, Glenn Lunny, William Moon, Frank Van Rensselaer, and Milt Windler. We also have,
Wow.
no, and it gets more exciting because we have the book author from Rocket Men. His name is Robert Curson. He's going to be joining us and acting as moderator for us that evening. And we'll have a current mission control engineer, Michael Staw, present to kind of give present day feedback as it relates to what these gentlemen did for the future and for our present day astronauts in mission control.
That sounds awesome. I'm so glad I'm able to come out for this one. It sounds like it's a once in a lifetime opportunity. And when do tickets go on sale for this?
Tickets will be available first, John, to our Cosmosphere members on the 15th. If you are a Cosmosphere member, are going to want to watch your inbox. That's how we're going to communicate the opening of this to you. So you'll be directed through a link to our ticket sales site.
Okay.
And then we'll open up our general ticket sales for the public on the 29th.
Okay.
I want to make a couple other mentions here. We will have a limited number of VIP tickets available, and those tickets will allow you an opportunity to actually physically visit with these NASA guests before the presentation that evening. It also have other benefits like closer seating to the stage, valet parking, extra drink tokens, etc.
Okay.
So there are some benefits for getting your tickets early.
For sure.
And the other thing I want to mention on this is that the tickets are non-refundable.
Okay.
And we are providing photography that evening, so we're asking no selfies.
Sure. That makes sense. I'd rather have a professional photographer do the pictures anyways.
Absolutely. That way you're guaranteed in one with your eyes open.
No doubt, for sure. Well, Carla, that sounds like a great opportunity, and I'll be sure to share links to all of this in the show notes for everybody to check out. Thanks for coming back on.
Wonderful. Thanks for having me, John.
MPS on A2, satellite launch, latch A from lock to unlock.
Check.
Latch B from lock to unlock.
Check.
Activate.
Check.
Pilot F2, confirm AC volts are between 97 and 174, display 2. From 97 to 1, we're at 117 across the board, we're go.
Commander C1, item 8.
Item 8.
Do not hit enter yet.
Commander PLC C1, where are we at? We at the hour mark? We're rapidly approaching. Okay. We appear to be caught in the time warp. Can we do the time warp dance? Alright, we're almost there. Got a few seconds.
This is where we need to do it both at the same time.
Maybe we're passing over the South Atlantic anomaly. I don't know. We're gonna let the MPS hit the satellites. 3, 2, 1, mark. Check. Ooh, there it goes.
PLC, stand by for satellite to clear PLB. How's it looking out the aft windows?
Awesome. Capcom, this is the PLC.
Go ahead, PLC.
Satellite has been deployed.
Roger that. We confirm satellite deployment. Looks like we successfully deployed over the the Arctic Ocean just below Australia.
Good day.
Okay, Delta, due to our power failure earlier, we are going to need you to skip quickly ahead to stand by for your flight director.
All right, Delta, we're having some issues here on the ground because of our earlier electrical failure. Commander, go ahead and enter in spec.
That was some audio from the adult astronaut adventure that I attended earlier this summer. I think I can speak for all of the attendees when I say that we thoroughly enjoyed the camp and are looking forward to more in the future. If you're listening and you've got kids, or if you want to attend a camp for yourself, please check out the link to the Cosmosphere camps in the show notes of today's episode. Now, let's finish up today by checking in with the curator at the Cosmosphere. I'd also like to note that as part of the Adult Astronaut Adventure, you get to tour the basement archives at the Cosmosphere. You'll see artifacts that aren't on display for various reasons, and it's a really fun part of the camp. Just one more reason you need to get to Hutchinson next summer for the 2019 camp. Today I'm talking with Shannon Wetzel, the curator at the Cosmosphere. Shannon, it's been a long time coming to have you on the podcast, so welcome.
Well, thank you for having me.
So we're coming up in a couple months on the anniversary of Apollo 8, and the Cosmosphere has some unique artifacts related to that mission. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, we have quite a few from Apollo 8. I did a quick search before this podcast just to make sure I didn't miss anything. Believe it or not, we have a large collection of space food that was flown on Apollo 8. I guess they sent a lot of extra just in case, right?
That would make sense.
We have the translunar injection procedure manual, which is extremely cool.
Yes.
It has handwritten notes inside of it. One of the surprising things to me, again, I have no space background, so, I learn something new every day, and every day I'm floored by what those astronauts had to do. Yeah. Even in terms of talking about cameras. I mean, it wasn't a digital camera. It wasn't like a point and shoot. I mean, these men had to learn how to be photographers, professional photographers, more or less, on the moon, wearing a spacesuit and those heavy gloves. And geologists and everything else, right? They were truly heroic, obviously, but then everything I learned, more heroic. But the TLI procedures, one of the things that strikes me about it is how thin it is. Mm-hmm. To get out of Earth orbit, I'm going to need a giant 500-page manual. They were fine with a small booklet and, of course, had trained so much, I'm sure that they were well prepared. But it floors me to see how little instruction is really in there.
Well, back when I was here for the Adult Astronaut Adventure over the summer, that was one of the artifacts that you showed us downstairs.
Was it really? Okay, good.
And I got some cool pictures of that. So I will be posting those along with this episode.
Cool.
So
oh my gosh.
I got
chills
I
didn't even know you were going to do that.
Me neither at the time.
How exciting.
So yeah, this works out.
Yeah.
So the big thing with Apollo 8, obviously, besides the first mission around the moon and getting in orbit around the moon, is the truly iconic photograph, now known as the Earthrise photograph. Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit about how that's related to one of the artifacts here at the museum?
Yes, we do have the camera that was used on Apollo 8. It is actually, I'm prepared for the why isn't it on display question, right? Were you going to go there? Or you were going to be very polite, I'm sure, but why isn't it on display? As the Smithsonian works to redo their galleries, that camera will go on display in the, I can't think of Destination Moon. I can't think of what the title for their exhibit is. But that camera is not on display here because soon it will go on display at the Smithsonian.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's one of the cool things about the Cosmosphere, too, is because the affiliation with the Smithsonian, there's a lot of it's kind of like a good interplay, I guess, between the two museums. Is that right?
Oh, yes, absolutely. And being a collection staff of one, I benefit so much from their research, even their website, but having access to their curators and particularly their camera curators have been extremely helpful just in me learning about the camera collection.
Well, and that's one of the topics I want to stay on is the camera collection here at the Cosmosphere is extremely extensive. And I've heard Jim talk about this, and you sound like, it's true here. The Cosmosphere has the largest collection of space camera hardware.
Yeah, and as I mentioned before we started, that I don't have numbers. I cannot confirm that with numbers, but yes, I believe it is true.
Okay. And then one of the very unique pieces of this collection is a camera from Apollo 14. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. The significance is not just that it's a camera from Apollo 14, but it is the only camera to be returned from the lunar surface. When you're on the lunar surface taking photos, in order to cut weight, you want to bring back lots and lots of samples. They basically discarded anything that they didn't need. So they would bring back the film magazines, not the actual camera. This is an actual camera that was brought back from the lunar surface. And I did some research before this trying to find out what happened, what was the significance. Yeah. And I couldn't find anything, so I wonder if someone just forgot.
That's kind of a cool historical quirk.
Yeah, it is.
Potentially it ended up here just because somebody forgot about it.
Brought it in.
Well, and one of the things on display downstairs too is like the film magazines that you were talking about. Mm-hmm. Those, it's not like a digital camera nowadays where the images are just stored on memory. These were actual, pretty bulky, like 2-3 inch cubes, basically. Mm-hmm. And they held the film that was exposed on the lunar surface or in orbit of the moon.
Right.
What's unique about the ones that are on display here at the Cosmosphere?
We have on display downstairs a film magazine from every manned Apollo mission signed by one of the astronauts on that mission. And it's actually in a very cool little display.
It's one of my favorite displays here. And that's just one of the things, too, because they're signed by the astronauts, and then there's also on the sides there it says a little bit about like what's on the magazine, I think.
Yes,
too.
Specifically, I mean, the record keeping is extensive, so yes, they can tell what images were taken from that magazine.
It's pretty incredible.
It is pretty incredible.
So one of the things besides managing the massive collection of artifacts
the camera collection in particular.
Exactly, is that there are new artifacts that come in. Can you talk a little bit about the process of what goes into making sure those are cataloged correctly? I mean, for me, I don't know anything about archiving.
Oh, right.
So if you could just give us like a crash course, if you will.
Well, I mean, when I give tours, I think the best way to explain it is I'm basically a librarian, except for stuff instead of books.
Okay.
So every piece gets a unique number and gets entered into our system, photographed, and its storage location is tracked just like a library. And 99.999% of the time, it's right where it says it's supposed to be. Usually, when it's not, it's a typo. The human error is still in there.
And, downstairs, I've been down there the one time. I had a couple favorites that I could name, but what is your favorite artifact down there that's not on display?
As I always say, officially, I love all of our artifacts equally. So that is my official statement. Right. We have so many cool things in storage that I wish I could pinpoint a favorite, but one thing that comes to mind is that we have this really cool chess set. It's a Russian chess set, and so the pawns are little Sputniks, and I'm trying to think of what the other things are. I'm gonna get them wrong, but so say the queen is a Soyuz.
Yeah.
And all these symbols from the Russian space program.
Wow.
Yeah. Are you going to ask me why that's not on display?
I'm a little bit dumbfounded now. Oh my gosh.
Well, of course there are so many things that if I told you, why isn't that on display? But we can't have everything on display. Yeah. The chess set, unfortunately, needs some conservation work, much like the TLI procedure booklet. Okay. Just as a side note on that, sure. A well-meaning past employee taped it to its plexi stand. So it needs some conservation work.
For sure.
The chess set, I'm trying to think, the in between the squares, there's like a little metal,
I don't know.
Yeah, to make the grid.
Yeah.
And a lot of those have popped up.
Okay.
So it's not in the best condition to go on display. And of course, one of the things we think about when we work on exhibits is condition. Condition in terms of harming the artifact, of course, as well as aesthetic display purposes.
Sure. Well, that makes sense. I mean, one of my favorite things that's just aesthetically one of the coolest artifacts here is the little lunar impactor, the Soviet impactor.
That is my favorite piece on exhibit. I love that.
It's so cool.
And I think it gets skipped too much. I always put it in my tours.
It's a little bit tucked in the side there, unfortunately. So if you come to the Cosmosphere, it's kind of in this little dark corner that you have to hang a left as you're going through.
That's right, in the Kennedy Theater. You'll see it. And if you don't see it, ask one of us.
Well, and, Shannon, one of the other things that I saw when we were on the tour for the astronaut adventure this summer was the baseball.
Yes.
That, to me, when you were going over the story of that,
is
just incredible. And for those of you who don't know, I think I talked about it a couple episodes ago.
Oh, did you really?
But I don't remember the specifics. I think I just mentioned that there was a baseball signed by the Apollo 1 crew.
Right.
And when you were telling us that story, do you mind sharing a little bit of that?
Oh, yeah, I will try. Okay. I'm not a baseball fan, so I make it a couple things. I always have to look up the specifics before I tell a group, but it is a 1966 World Series baseball. It was a foul ball, so someone in the stands caught it. And he really wanted to get the team to sign it. Oh, I'm sorry, Sandy Koufax was pitching.
Okay.
That's a big deal to people. I'm afraid, again, I know nothing about that, but that is a big deal to a lot of people. Generally, when I say that during the tour, I get a couple, So Sandy Koufax was pitching. He wanted to get it signed by the team, and unfortunately must have missed them. As I always say, they went out a different door or something,
probably.
And so he took it to a local eatery, diner, something along those lines, and was telling one of the employees there this story. And the employee said, well, there's 3 astronauts over at that table. Why don't you have them sign it? So he did. The 3 Apollo 1 astronauts. And so this was 1966, the fall of 1966.
Yeah.
And so probably 3-4 months later, all 3 perished in that fire.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a chilling story, really.
I'm getting goosebumps as you're telling that again, because it's such an odd little historical...
It is.
I mean, what are the odds of all of that happening? I think it's just a really interesting confluence of events got that baseball to that spot. And I will post some pictures. I got a couple pictures of that I will be posting along with this episode, so that way people can see what we're talking about. Well, Shannon, that's all the time we've got for today. I really appreciate you coming on the podcast, and we look forward to having you on again soon.
Yes, thank you for having me.
I want to thank Jack, Carla, and Shannon for taking the time to chat with us this month. A big thank you to all of you for listening to the podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please leave us a review on iTunes. They're crucial to the success of podcasts, so we'd appreciate it if you could take just a minute to leave a rating or review. For the Cosmosphere, I'm John Molnix.
Complete and the pitch is programming.